Okay, current assets. We're at the main categories of the balance sheet, and so we're going to start with the current assets. Current, you have to know the definition of an operating cycle. I think your book explains that fairly well. So we'll start with cash and cash equivalents. Cash is the main measure that analysts will look at for the purchasing power of the company. Its ability to pay its bills as they come due and to grow if it chooses to. So it's important to classify this properly because it is providing information that's useful, okay? So you don't want to say something is cash if it's not available to pay the current liabilities or for current use. So we define cash fairly specifically. It's cash on hand, cash in banks that's available to use, so that would be the checking account balances and all of that. It could also be cashier's checks, money orders, bank drafts, and of course petty cash. Petty cash is cash. And then most companies are going to list cash and cash equivalents. To be a cash equivalent, it has to be a very short term, and they defined that as having a maturity date of 3 months or less when purchased. So short-term, highly liquid investments, they have to have a maturity date of 3 months or less, and you have to be able to sell them. It can't be some obscure thing that there's no way you get no market for. The idea is it could be converted readily to cash. So these would be things like commercial paper, money market funds, and some U.S. Treasury bills. Okay, so cash and cash equivalents. The other thing, you're trying to provide users of the financial statements with information they can base decisions on. So if cash is restricted, it's not available to pay the current bills. So we have to disclose that. Restricted cash is if it's not available to pay for current payables or whatever, it gets reported separately. It can be reported current or non-current depending on when it's expected to be used. So if it's current, you would go cash and cash equivalents, and then restricted cash, but you would report it on its own line. If it's non-current, it could be reported in the other assets or investments section. What could it be restricted for? It could be restricted for, the company has a big bond issue that it's going to have to pay off soon, so it can't use that cash for other purposes. Maybe you're planning to expand the facilities, and you've got cash earmarked for that. Disclosure of cash, in the footnotes to financial statements, you have to disclose how you're defining cash and your cash equivalents, and describe any restrictions. Okay, so that takes us through cash. Next we'll hit the short-term investments.